This weekend is the Chicago Bears' last opportunity to fine-tune this roster before the regular season. And Ben Johnson is seeing some really encouraging progress from some of the most important players on both sides of the ball.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. On the show today, we're going to go through the real progress the Bears are seeing now as training camp starts to wrap up, the preseason wraps up, and the attention starts to turn toward the regular season. We'll start with Caleb Williams and where Ben Johnson is seeing the most growth from his young quarterback that maybe we don't necessarily get to see as much in preseason games, given how little they use him and show what he's been working on, but definitely something I'm looking forward to seeing in week one. Same thing is true for DeAndre Swift, a player who we haven't seen at all in the preseason and someone who's been maybe a quieter training camp storyline, but maybe having the best preseason of his career and in the best position to start the season that Ben Johnson has ever seen. We'll also check in on the two defensive rookies who expect to be week one starters for the Chicago Bears, Dillon Thieneman at safety and Malik Muhammad as the slot cornerback, and how Ben Johnson has seen them work through the ups and downs of being a rookie, trying to start it in the secondary on an NFL defense with a bunch of injuries loading up around them. But we know that the most important progress every year and every preseason is about Caleb Williams. The Bears will go as far as Caleb Williams will take them. We are very impressed with what we've seen from Caleb Williams so far, but also want to see Caleb Williams take another step forward this year. And you're getting glimpses of that for sure at training camp practices. You know, the one preseason game he's appeared in so far against the Cincinnati Bengals was 5 pass attempts. You know, it was not a sample size there for us to glean any big picture takeaways about progress Caleb has or hasn't made. I mean, one of his incompletions was a batted pass. One was an intentionally thrown away pass towards Rome Odoo, and then not quite on the same page with Colston Loveland in there. I mean, it's too small of a sample size to look at it and say, there's the difference between last year's Caleb Williams and this year's Caleb Williams. But if you had a chance to get to any Bears training camp practices or just watched clips of the offense operating that people post on social media from the stands, even though I don't think they're supposed to, you see a quarterback executing plays at a much higher level than we were seeing at this time last year, which, like, of course, you should be. Right? It's his second season in Ben Johnson's offense. There should be real progress there, but it is still important to acknowledge and check in on, and then helps us know what to look for in terms of progress when the regular season starts. So here's how Ben Johnson sees his quarterback coming along and what they still want to see from him as they get ready for week one.
What do you want to see Caleb accomplish before he gets to that week 0 kind of game planning for the start of the season?
Shoot, there is no end line here. This is a continual process that we started well over a year ago now, and we're just continuing to build on things that we see that he's doing well and things that we feel like he can get better at. So I alluded to it a couple days ago. We're honing in this week in particular on some of the situational work and coverage recognition. We'll get through this block and we'll sit down and we'll reassess where we're at and what we need to focus on going forward.
A couple more here, guys. Specifically.
Well, yeah, I think that's been probably the best thing so far this camp. Just the anticipation, the timing, the understanding where we want to put the football. He's not afraid to fit it in the tight windows. He trusts his pass catchers. But a year ago, I think a lot of the things were foreign to him, and now you can tell he's got some banked reps and he's able to anticipate where he wants to go with the football now.
That anticipation and timing is such a critical aspect. When you think about all the times last year when Caleb would throw to a spot where he's expecting the receiver to be, and the receiver isn't there, or the receiver's not quite there, or he's just not quite in the exact spot, but either the timing or the distance or whatever would be off, because they were both still learning the plays and learning each other, excuse me, and learning how long it takes the ball to get there when Caleb Williams throws it, and learning exactly based on what coverage, how you need to adjust a route here and there. And it's just something that takes reps and reps, time, weeks, months, years to really master with the same players running the same plays over and over again. But I think a really solid, clear example of this came in the joint practice on Thursday with the Tennessee Titans. People were posting video clips on social media, and if you want to look for this one, I did quote tweet it and add a little commentary on Twitter at Cox Sports One if you want to see the video I'm talking about here. But it's in the red zone. The Bears run a play action pass that is like a fake wide receiver reverse, right? So initially Caleb fakes the handoff to DeAndre Swift. Then he fakes the handoff to one of the wide receivers coming in motion, like a double handoff, but doesn't hand off to either one, keeps the ball, turns upfield, and then floats it into Cole Kmet in the back corner of the end zone, wide open. And you might say, oh, well, it's a trick play or whatever, so that's why Cole Kmet was wide open, and sure, whatever. But like specifically for Caleb Williams on that play, if you kind of slow it down or like kind of pause and play and kind of like go at it in a choppy way, you can see that Cole Kmet on the play is pretending to block for the fake run, because they're faking the handoff to the running back and the wide receiver. So he's like blocking from the tight end position and then, stops blocking late in the play and then runs out to his route to catch the touchdown. But Cole Kmet is still fake blocking when Caleb Williams starts his throwing motion, right? This is not something where he sees where Cole Kmet is and is throwing the ball to Cole Kmet. He is winding up and starting to throw the ball while Cole Kmet is still blocking or fake blocking a player on the play. He has not even started running out into his route yet. So Caleb Williams is throwing it to a spot in the end zone that he anticipates and trusts Cole Kmet will be by the time the ball actually gets there, despite Cole Kmet not having even started running his route yet. Like, I think technically as Caleb Williams is releasing the ball, Cole Kmet is just starting his route, but like he is winding up to throw that ball, not knowing for sure whether Cole Kmet will be able to get there or not, but knows the play, the timing, and the receiver well enough, presumably from having done it over and over again, to know, oh, I just got to put that ball in this spot at this exact time, and I know that my receiver will get there, and it will be a touchdown because he was blocking for a full 2.5 seconds, so no one was covering Cole Kmet when he stops blocking and then runs up the field, and Caleb doesn't even need to see whether Cole Kmet is open or not. You're just throwing it and trusting it and knowing that the timing and the anticipation is going to be perfect. Like, those are the kind of plays the Bears would just kind of miss on last year. I mean, not necessarily specifically fake wide receiver reverse pass plays, but like those kind of plays where you're putting it in a spot and you're trusting your guy to be there. And the problem was never trusting, right? He would put it in the spot and trust the guy to be there. The guy just wouldn't always be there, or it wouldn't be the right spot, right? But like he wasn't afraid of the throws. They just didn't always connect. They weren't executing at a high level, but like that play and many others we've seen from training camp practices are a great example of like high level execution of a quarterback and receivers on the same page. Obviously that the offensive line has to block long enough as well for the fake handoff to the running back, the fake handoff to the wide receiver, and then Caleb to still turn, look, throw the ball, right? So the execution is all 11 guys doing their part, but specifically for the quarterback, like timing, anticipation, execution seems to be really on point. And I know, okay, that's a red zone trick play. It's the ball goes maybe 20 yards in the air. It's not a super difficult tight window throw or whatever, but I think it illustrates the kind of point that Ben Johnson was making there. Absolutely. So I think those are the kind of things I want to see more of when we actually get to see a full game's worth of Caleb Williams in the regular season. I'm also really eager to see how well DeAndre Swift starts out this season, because Ben Johnson has been particularly effusive in his praise of DeAndre Swift in a way that hasn't gotten nearly as much attention as when he praised Luther Burden a bunch this offseason, or even when he's praised Rome Odunze. We don't pay as close attention to when he says a bunch of nice things about DeAndre Swift. And in particular, I think it's going to set up DeAndre Swift to have a better start to this season than he began last year. So we'll take a look at DeAndre Swift's progress and what that will look like, both from an on-the-field standpoint and from a production standpoint, next on Locked on Bears. This episode of Locked on Bears is brought to you by Home Chef. Life gets busy, And sometimes figuring out what's for dinner can quickly become another thing on your to-do list. But Home Chef takes the stress out of mealtime by delivering fresh ingredients and easy-to-follow recipes right to your door. Whether you're looking to eat healthier, save money on takeout, or simply spend less time grocery shopping and meal planning, Home Chef makes cooking at home simple, convenient, and enjoyable with more than 30 meal options every week. So there's something for every schedule and every lifestyle. That's why Home Chef is rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off plus free shipping on your first box and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedonnfl. That's homechef.com/lockedonnfl for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. homechef.com/lockedonnfl. Must be an active subscriber to keep receiving the free dessert. The Locked On Bears podcast is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. You know, there's certain flavors that just instantly feel like summer, especially as summer is winding down. I think about, getting a frozen treat and you get that classic like red, white, and blue freezer pop flavor. And that's exactly what 5 Hour Energy is tapping into with their new combination Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy Shot. It blends sweet cherry, zesty lime, and electric blue raspberry into one refreshing shot inspired by those iconic summer freezy pops. It just brings you back to your childhood summers off of school and really just enjoying that sunshine. Man, it goes faster than you think it is when you're that age, that's for sure. But 5 Hour Energy really taps back into that with their new Firework Freeze flavor. So ignite your taste buds with the flavor of summer. Get a Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy Shot today. For more information, visit 5hourenergy.com. Most of the energy and attention this offseason, it always goes to the passing game, right? We want to see Caleb's progress. We have some questions about Rome Dunze's foot for a little while there, and all the hype about him and Luther Burden and Colston Loveland's. All the hype is quarterback, passing game. Of course, that's the modern NFL. But we know that Ben Johnson is a real freak for the running game. Really kind of gets him going. He is maybe the only head coach in the NFL who installs the running game himself and is in the running meetings. And that is what Ben Johnson loves. It is the foundation of the offense. And we heard Press Taylor talk about, they're not just running the ball to control the clock instead of play action. They see the running game as a weapon and a key part of their offense, not just to balance out the passing game, but to be that threat every single time you hand the ball off, that the other team is worried that you're going to score, that you're going to bust open a big play and really make them respect that running game as a legitimate part of your offense and not just kind of dressing around the passing game that really gets the dirty work done. So all that being said, I'm surprised that we collectively don't pay more attention to DeAndre Swift and Kyle Mulunga. And I think part of that is that, Swift is a fairly established veteran at this stage of the process. And we kind of know that the offensive line is going to run block well. We don't have a ton of concerns there. So maybe there's not as much new there, whereas Burden and Odoo and Loveland are all young players, and Caleb, they're young players that we still are expecting more and want to see more from, whereas maybe we feel like Swift is closer to his ceiling, and we kind of just, what he is and what he isn't at this stage of the process. But Ben Johnson contends that maybe we haven't seen all of DeAndre Swift just yet, that maybe there is more to him that we can see this year, and he's seeing a player that might be in the best position to start a season as he's had in his career. And I'm curious to see how this translates into potentially a faster start to the regular season than we saw from DeAndre Swift last year.
I've been very positive about DeAndre and the camp he's having. Where have you seen his progress in understanding the concepts and the tracks that you're looking for?
Yeah, no, I think he and I just had the conversation the other day. It's the best I've seen him this time of year. And you look back at a year ago, he was very explosive, and yet it takes a little while to gel between him and the offensive line. I think he's accelerating his vision here at this point. I think Coach Studesville's been fantastic for him, just with the reads and being able to know the intent of where we're trying to hit things. He bounces it when we're supposed to bounce it. He hits it right on the spot when it's there, and then he cuts it up. I think he's doing a really good job right now. We just got to get him to that first week nice and healthy and ready to go. I think he's primed for a big year, though.
I think that's something we overlook a little bit when we entered in last season. Of course, we think about quarterback and receivers, and there being a lot of plays to learn and timing to learn, and that might not all be on the same page. But we kind of just assume in the running game, it's like, okay, well, everybody runs different versions of the same runs. It's like inside zone, outside zone, power, counter, duo, draw plays. Like everybody's running variations of the same 5 or 6 things. And so in theory, DeAndre Swift wasn't being asked to run new runs in Ben Johnson's offense that he's never done before, but it was a brand new offensive, a very different offensive line for him, and a different terminology in the system, and a lot more like, sort of dressing on it, that Ben Johnson kind of makes it look a lot different for the defense, but it's supposed to be kind of the same thing for the running back. And that there is some timing and chemistry aspects of that too, of the running back being able to know how the blocks are going to pass off and how they're going to develop on some of these plays. And that, maybe we should have had a little bit of patience for DeAndre Swift more last year, but I'm now expecting a much faster start for him at this stage of the process. It really does stand out to me, like just how much better he was after those first 4 weeks of the season last year. Then the Bears went into the bye week, you may recall, and they benched Braxton Jones, started Theo Benedict, and kind of revamped their running game and came out really firing on all cylinders in the ground game. Like immediately after that bye week in week 6, they ran all over. Was it the Saints out of the bye week, or was it? I always think of the Commanders coming out of the bye week. Yeah, it was the Commanders and then the Saints. And in back-to-back weeks, the Bears put up over 150 rushing yards, and the running game was reborn. Like if you look over the first 4 games of last season, DeAndre Swift was 16th in rushing yards and 23rd in yards per carry, at 48th in yards after contact, had 1 touchdown in 4 weeks. And he was, I think, almost under 100 yards, I think, through those first 4 games that combined. It was not a very strong start for Swift. And we were kind of underwhelmed because the running game was supposed to be this big part of the offense. It was like 200 yards, but still it was not he was averaging less than 50 yards per game in those first 4 games. It just wasn't where you wanted it to be. But if you look like from week 6 on, and this includes Swift missing a game due to injury, DeAndre Swift was top 10 in rushing yards, top 5 in rushing yards per carry, top 10 in touchdowns, top 5 in runs of 10 or more yards, like, explosive type of runs last season, while getting roughly the same amount of carries the first 4 weeks as the final, what would that be? 13 weeks. Like he ranked 16th in carries in both stretches, but like yards per carry, touchdowns, explosive runs, even yards after contact, like his ability to fight through tackles improved after those first 4 weeks. For whatever reason, some of it being O-line, maybe some of it being new scheme, maybe some of it being mental or whatever, Swift wasn't running as well through the first 4 weeks last season, but really took off after that bye week and after the Bears adjusted a number of things in the running game. And so now when Ben Johnson talks about Swift being, the best he's ever seen at this stage of the preseason and the training camp, I'm a lot more encouraged that they can come out firing a lot faster in the running game, that they can come out against Carolina and really establish that run instead of the kind of struggle that it was at the beginning of last year. Because even Kyle Monangai was not quite as dynamic in those first handful of games. He was a rookie and a 7th round pick, so we kind of understood that we weren't expecting him to be a 750-yard rusher, but like it settled in for him too. So I'm really kind of excited to see this running game. I mean, we know now Monangai is banged up with the hyperextended knee that he suffered in practice when Grady Jarrett rolled up on him a couple of weeks ago. So Monangai himself might not be ready for week 1. We don't know what the timeline is going to look like there. But I think as long as Swift is good to go, you've got Roshan Johnson and Salvin Ahmed as the sort of the 3 and the 4 that, for a game or 2, if Monangai has to miss a time, you'll be fine with those guys backing up Swift as long as you got Swift. I mean, obviously, if you're missing both your top 2 running backs, that's a much different story. But for now, I feel really good about Swift being able to go out there, and not that he's going to rush for 200 yards against the Panthers in week 1, but like last year, his first game was 53 yards on 17 carries. He averaged 3.1 yards per carry in his first game. He had a couple against the Cowboys and the Raiders. He was under 3 yards per carry, 33 yards, 38 yards. Like it just wasn't good enough for the offense. And I suspect that he's going to come out firing a little bit more like a well-oiled machine, a little bit closer to mid-season form. And there's kind of a ripple effect here too, right? Where if the timing is better in the passing game and Caleb Williams is connecting with his receivers and the passing game is going well, then they're going to take fewer guys in the box because they want to be able to cover these receivers. So that opens up more space for the running game. And, if you're if you're leading on the scoreboard because your offense is operating, then you can run the ball a bit more and be able to lean to that ground game a little bit and have the defense on their heels, right? There can be some ripple effects are not just, well, how good is Swift individually, but sort of how good the offense is. And when the offense was struggling a little bit in those first few games last year, that made Swift's job that much more difficult. But everything seems to be heading in the right direction offensively for this Bears team to start out nice. And I don't want to say start hot, but like start fast. And that's been a big emphasis of Ben Johnson throughout the preseason so far. Still have some question marks defensively about that side being able to start hot. But a lot of that's going to fall on the shoulders of some rookies playing in really big roles in the secondary. And Ben Johnson is feeling good about the young players. Dillon Thieneman, always expected to be a starter as a first-round pick, but also Malik Muhammad coming in as a fourth-round pick, getting thrust out there more so due to injury and taking it, running with it, and not giving it up. So we'll hear from Ben Johnson on the ups and downs, but the general progress these starting rookie defensive players have made next on Locked On Bears.
Matt Derry here from the Locked On Lions podcast. You know, life insurance is one of those things you don't really think about until you have a reason to. For me, it really hit home when my father passed away over 20 years ago. You start thinking less about yourself and more about the people who depend on you and making sure they're taken care of no matter what. That's why I like Ethos. They make getting life insurance simple. It's 100% online, no doctor visits, no needles, none of that. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in just a few minutes, and even get same-day coverage. And honestly, that's huge because life gets busy. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some plans are as low as just $30 a month. It's just one of those things that gives you peace of mind knowing your family is protected. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Applications may vary. Rates may vary.
The Chicago Bears rookies in the secondary will be a point of emphasis for opposing offenses. You know, opposing quarterbacks are going to look at the Bears cornerbacks and safeties and will always try to find the weak link and attack that over and over again. And when you get into the regular season, if you're presumably as healthy as you hope to be in week one, like essentially maybe everybody but Kobe Bryant and Kyler Gordon, for example, available to you, then you look at this Bears secondary and the players that opposing veteran quarterbacks are going to want to target will presumably be the rookies, right? You're going to have some kind of veteran starting next to Dillon Thieneman, whether it's Cam Lewis or Xavier Woods or maybe even Elijah Hicks, but like any of those guys have started NFL games before at safety. Dillon Thieneman has not. And at cornerback, right? Jalen Johnson and presumably Tyree Stevenson will be your outside cornerbacks, and then Malik Muhammad will be in the slot. And so you will see opposing quarterbacks try and match up their best wide receiver with your, dare I say, worst coverage defender. It's not an insult to, I'm not trying to be insulting to Malik Muhammad and Dillon Thieneman, but just like a rookie doing it for the first time is likely to be the most favorable matchup for an opposing offense compared to the other veterans that have a bit more experience doing this. And so it's very much like a weak link philosophy in the secondary where like you're kind of, I don't want to say you're only as good as your worst player, but like it's kind of like that in a lot of times because that's what opposing teams are going to go after. So it's that much more important that your rookies are ready to go, as good as they can be. And I think the good news here, especially, you know, when it comes to Malik Muhammad, is that these are players who have won a competition like fairly legitimately, right? It wasn't, they never just handed Malik Muhammad the starting job. I mean, to be fair, he wouldn't be starting if Kyler Gordon was healthy, but when Kyler Gordon was injured, they didn't then hand the job to Malik Muhammad, right? But he's been competing with Josh Blackwell, who's played NFL reps at slot cornerback before. Jalen Jones, he was hurt on and off a lot, but also like established NFL players. And even the safety Cam Lewis was playing some slot. And they decided that, as it appears now, their best option in the slot appears to be, in their eyes, Malik Muhammad as a rookie. Now, Thieneman also was competing for his starting safety job, I suppose, but like there was a little bit less of a competition and a little bit more of like, hey, you're a first-round pick, so you got to be out there and playing at a high level. But it's a lot to ask, especially in the slot for Malik Muhammad, where, you know, wide receivers kind of have two-way goes. There's not a sideline that you can use as sort of some help there. You kind of, you know, when you're an outside cornerback, you know they're not going to the side. You know, they can't go out of bounds. So you kind of can keep them in front of you and use the sideline as a boundary that you're working with. But in the slot, they can go left, right, vertical, wherever, and you got to be able to follow them all over the field. So clearly, Malik Muhammad has been working through that. And as a fourth-round pick, there's going to be ups and downs with that. And even for Dillon Thieneman as a first-round pick, it's been a little bit quieter from him, but he's a quiet guy. And I think it's kind of just, he's kind of down to business, getting work done, putting in the work, and kind of making more quieter, subtle progress that we haven't gotten to see as much in preseason games, but we have seen in training camp and joint practices. So here's how Ben Johnson sees his two rookies in the secondary progressing and where his confidence level is in them potentially starting week one.
How's Malik progressing, and if he had to start it at nickel, do you do that?
It's like any rookie. There's always ups and downs. There's bumps in the road, but we're really pleased with the path that he's on right now. I think he's doing a great job. He's a competitor. Sometimes those young guys, little guys in particular, are they willing to tackle to the degree that we want here? And I think he's answered that bell. So really excited about his trajectory right now. Going up, a little bit of down, up, that, there's some of that going on, but overall it's going the right way.
With Dillon at safety, how would you characterize maybe the growth, development you're seeing?
I just joked around with the team a couple of days ago. I don't even know what his voice sounds like. Really, he just comes into work and gets after it. A little bit robotic like that, in a good way. I'm saying that as a compliment. He just puts his head down and grinds. And what you've seen is slow and steady progress throughout. You've seen some of the ball production last week, certainly in Cincinnati, getting the interception. That was one of the best plays of that practice. And what you're seeing now is him really honing in on taking good angles, whether he's the quarter safety, post safety, down safety. It really doesn't matter where he's aligning, making sure he's taking good angles and stopping the football that way. So really pleased with where he's at as well.
Sounds like everything is on track. That doesn't mean that they're not going to make mistakes when they get into the regular season and aren't going to get beat for completed passes and touchdowns during the regular season. It's a natural part of the game, but you feel like, well, trial by fire, they've absolutely done everything the Bears are looking for. I know it's been kind of tough for us with, Dillon Thieneman's been on the field for 28 snaps of preseason games. Like, that's half or a third of a regular season game's worth of total snaps. Like, we just haven't gotten to see a lot of opportunity to make big plays or to make mistakes, I suppose. But like, generally, he has done well. And same thing with Malik Muhammad. Like, he's been targeted a bunch and he's given up some catches, but as Ben Johnson said, like, he's been a very willing and physical tackler to get in there for someone who isn't a particularly large cornerback. I mean, he's not tiny, but he's just not a big bodied guy. But I think it does stand out to me that neither Malik Muhammad nor Dillon Thieneman has even missed a tackle in the preseason yet. And that's not the perfect measurement of, how good they are, because it's only been 28 snaps for Dillon Thieneman. But like, you compare that to some other rookies around the NFL. Like, you remember during the NFL draft, there was a debate about which safety the Bears should take, Dillon Thieneman or Emmanuel McNeil-Warren from Toledo. He missed a tackle in one of his preseason games. And that doesn't mean he's a bad player and Dillon Thieneman's way better, but it's something that you think of rookies as, hey, missing tackles. It's a lot harder to tackle guys in the NFL than it was in college, and there's an adjustment there. But like some of the other guys we talked about for the Bears in the draft, like Keontae Scott from Miami, Traden Stukes from Arizona, Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. They've all missed one or more tackles on defense in the preseason so far. But Malik Muhammad has not. Dillon Thieneman has not. And to me, like, it's a very like small example of like where you're seeing that physicality that the Bears want from them really manifesting itself in that they are not only like not missing tackles, but they're making tackles too, right? You're not going to miss a tackle if you never attempt to tackle, but we've seen, and I think Malik Muhammad has 5 or 6 over the course of the preseason. Thieneman's gotten in on a handful himself, a lot fewer snaps, so fewer opportunities to make or miss tackles, but still, like, Thieneman has gotten his nose in there in the running game. Malik Muhammad from the slot has gotten involved in the running game. Like, I think these guys are getting some really good coaching from Al Harris, and I think we're going to see them do just fine over the course of the year. And then, eventually you wonder, if Kyler Gordon gets healthier, does that change the playing time for Malik Muhammad at some point? We'll see. Ben Johnson kind of seemed to call out Kyler Gordon indirectly during his press conference on Thursday and said, almost every player on the team is really fighting hard to get back to playing. And it's like, what do you mean by almost everybody? Like, it seemed to be calling out Kyler Gordon still. So I don't know that relationship is ever going to repair and see the field. So maybe it will be Malik Muhammad all season long. And you wonder for Thieneman too, if if late in the season Kobe Bryant comes back, do we get to see a better version of Dillon Thieneman with an even better player next to him on the back end? But both of those guys are not going to be finished products in week 1. They're not going to be finished products in week 18, but they're going to be better players in week 18 than they were in week 1. And it's going to be fun to see how they grow and develop across the regular season. And I'm sure we're still going to get to see at least some preseason snaps from Malik Muhammad in this third preseason game. And I would imagine maybe even some Dillon Thieneman as well, given that he played in the first preseason game when other starters did not. We'll see exactly how much they play, but I don't know how much time we're going to actually go back through the third preseason game against the Titans, because Titans game is on Saturday. Then on Sunday, the roster has to get cut down to 53 players. So on Monday's podcast, we got to talk about that 53-man roster. But then on Monday itself, everyone makes their waiver claims and signs other players that were cut from other teams. So we'll probably have to talk about any of those transactions on Tuesday's podcast. And so that would leave us till Wednesday. And at that point, are we talking about a Titans preseason game from Saturday with a bunch of guys that are already cut from the roster? Like, we'll still go live after the third preseason game right here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel as part of the Bears squad show. So if you want that instant reaction to Bears Titans, because you just can't get enough football on Saturday, join us in the YouTube stream for all of those updates. And then we'll break down the 53-man roster in whatever form it comes on Monday. We kind of went through a 53-man roster prediction a couple days ago on the podcast. If you want to kind of go through where we were thinking players are going to come and go there, there's only a couple spots that really feel like they're big unknowns right now, mainly due to injury. That was a podcast discussion a couple days ago to go through the 53. That'll get you ready for cut down day on Sunday. We'll see what we got wrong, because it's impossible to predict all 53 players correctly, because some are going to get cut, some are going to get on injured reserve, and it's not going to be a final product until Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll break all of those changes down for you right here on Locked On Bears. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Come on back on Monday. Make Locked On Bears your first listen once again for another opportunity to bear down.